Welcome back to the Cullman Regional's Better Health Now podcast. We have a familiar face back on the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Dodd.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive in and talk a little bit about the conversation of what parents need to know, kind of with newborns, as I feel like I'm seeing more and more people that I know having babies or having their first or having their third or whatever it might be. Diving into that topic, bringing a newborn home can be a little worrisome for some new parents. What are some of the concerns or questions that parents have presented to you over the years?
Yeah, there's always questions. There's always a lot of questions. And I think, one of the things that I love to try to start off that relationship with parents to really set the pace appropriately is to help parents understand that as their family doctor or their pediatrician, we are here for them. We are here to help guide them and give them advice and to help them figure out the things they do need to be worried about and the things they don't need to be worried about. One of the not myths, but one of the things I try to help parents get past. So many times I've heard people say, I'm sorry I brought him in. He just had a runny nose. I'm sorry I'm wasting your time. And I like to start right off and say, you're not wasting my time. That's why we're here. We're here to help you. We're here to help assess whether or not your kid needs something more or if an office visit is enough to help you feel okay. Your baby, they get sick. That's part of being a kid. They have to get exposed to things and build their immunity to it. And that's part of being a child. That's part of being even an infant. But there's this concept that it's a problem to come in unless it was something serious, and that's just not accurate.
Yeah.
The whole reason we're there is to give parents peace of mind and help them understand what's going on with their kid.
Yeah. How much of that unknown do you think there is that they're not just going to even know about, like, what to expect until the baby's here versus like how much can they actually prepare for?
That's a great question. I think the personality of the parent and the way the parent's brain works is going to probably best dictate what's going to work best for them. So there are parents that want to read every book that exists, and it's going to give them peace of mind knowing that they have ultimately prepared as much as possible. And to those parents, I encourage them, read all the books.
Yeah.
Read the books about what to expect before the baby's born, what's going to happen during the pregnancy, what can you do to prepare for the actual birth. Seek advice. Meet with people ahead of time and talk to people that are experts in this. What happens in the birthing process? What happens before you go home? Do a prenatal visit with a pediatrician. You get to know them and get to know who your person's going to be to help you with your infant. Prepare all the way. For people that aren't preparation people, that doesn't work for their brain and they like to figure things out as they go, they can do that too. I think probably the most important thing to understand how to walk through this is to kind of have a little self-reflection about who you are as a person and what kind of parent you want to be. And there's no absolute right and wrong answer about who that person's going to be and what's going to set them up for success. It's about them knowing themselves and then knowing some of the basics for kids about the absolute, like, these things are hard and fast rules that you should know.
Yeah. And establishing a good sleep routine is very important, or in the early stages with a newborn. How do you advise parents to kind of best accomplish this? Because this is something that I've heard from friends is, the sleep schedule for the baby is not the sleep schedule for the parents, or vice versa. How do you kind of go about navigating that and supporting these new parents in this stage of life?
I think the idea of a sleep schedule is very important. It's also not important for the first couple of weeks. I have parents coming in with babies that are 2, 3, 4 days old, and they're telling me that they're trying to get their baby on a sleep schedule, to which I was like, no. Right now, it's about feeding your baby. Your baby needs to feed probably every 2 hours.
Wow.
There is no sleep schedule.
Yeah, you're not sleeping.
You're not sleeping, but you are if you do it right. You're not sleeping the way that we adults like to sleep, which is I go to sleep and I wake up 7 or 8 or 9 hours later.
Yeah.
That's lovely. When you have an infant, that is not what your life looks like. And depending on how you're doing it as a team, or if you're doing it as a solo parent, depending on what type of feeding you're doing, all of those things go into what that sleep schedule might look like. But the first thing is a few weeks after the baby's born, there's really not a lot of scheduling that needs to take place. The most important thing is making sure that you're paying attention to your infant and that you're responding to their cues of needing to eat and knowing that happens extremely often.
And you mentioned a little bit, or alluded to a little bit, of bottle fed versus breastfed. What are some of the feeding challenges with newborns, depending on if the mother decides to go in one way or the other?
Yeah, I think one of the wonderful things that we have in our Western society and our first world is that we have options and choices. And that is a really nice blessing. The data is very clear that breast milk and breastfeeding is the best option. It's the gold standard for infants. The nice thing is we have formulas that provide pretty close, not quite as good as breast milk, but pretty close. The most important thing is that the baby gets nutrition, and we have choices about how that can happen. I think there is this myth that people have in their mind that the moment their baby's born, that they're going to have this light shine down from heaven, and the angel chorus is going to sing, and they're going to have this beautiful moment where their baby latches, and it's all perfect. And I would say that probably happens to about 10% of families. They get that perfect magical moment that is so beautiful. And the vast majority of people, it feels awkward, it feels crowded, it feels uncomfortable, maybe it even hurts a little bit, and it is just weird. The baby doesn't quite yet know how to eat. They have to learn. And for first-time moms that are trying to breastfeed that have never done it before, they have to learn how to do that too. And that takes a little bit of a learning curve. And having the expectation that it might not be perfectly smooth in that first feeding, that's a good expectation to have. And then if you get to have that magical moment, that's wonderful. But have the expectation it might be a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit awkward. And try to get support, try to get help. If you're having your baby at the hospital, we get nurses that can be helpful with that latching and trying to help the baby feed if we're doing breastfeeding. We have lactation specialists that can be helpful that have in a higher level of training in the breastfeeding medicine support.
So another area or important topic for new parents or parents in general is infant safety. What are some of the safety considerations for new parents, and how do you kind of prepare them for the unknown?
Yeah, that's, I think we've done a really nice job over the last 40 or 50 years as a country of helping people understand about safe infant sleep, but we can never talk about it enough. We've shown through countless studies that putting an infant on their back to sleep is the safest way for an infant to sleep. Now, the unfortunate thing that will happen as we try to help people understand that that is how infants sleep most safely, is on their back in their own sleeping space, is that it makes parents feel like they can't hold their baby when their baby is asleep. And that's not true. It's the caveat of they can hold their baby while their baby sleeps as long as they are fully awake. And when you are sleep deprived, knowing when you are getting sleepy and need to put your baby down, that can become a delicate tight rope to walk. Knowing that you should not sleep with your baby when you are asleep, that's the message. That is risky. That is dangerous. Co-sleeping, we know, can cause harm for infants. Having a baby sleep right next to you in the bed on your big adult mattress, that's not a safe sleeping environment for that child. But telling parents that they have to put their baby down as soon as they fall asleep, that's the wrong message, as long as the parent is awake.
Yeah, so it's a fine line they're having to balance between, at what stage is it best to put the baby down versus what stage is it okay for where they are currently, and then
as soon as the parent starts to feel sleepy, that infant needs to be put down in their own sleeping space. That's that line. And then there's oh, you're going to spoil your baby, right? Don't hold him too much. You're going to spoil him. And that's not true, especially in those first couple of weeks after the birth. You really cannot hold your baby too much.
Wow.
As long as you're doing it safely.
So kind of moving into another topic, can you talk a little bit about the parent-infant bonding process and how this kind of impacts the baby as it is growing?
Yeah, I think that kind of spurs right off of what we were just talking about. This idea of holding your baby. When babies are born, their vision, their ability to see is about this far, and that's about the distance from the breast to the face. And that's because when infants are born, they are going through a process of imprinting the face of their parent into their psyche to understand who is it that provides safety for me. And so that's a mom, that's a dad, that's a grandparent, that's an uncle, that's an aunt. It's whoever is going to be a care provider for this child. But holding this child right here in that eye, looking up at you, babies are imprinting your face. You can't have too much of that. You can't have too much of those snuggles. And so that bonding between the parent and the infant, starting right after birth, is so important. And the physical touch and the holding and the baby's brain being able to understand that when I am touched by this person that is my caregiver, that makes me feel safe. And it's a really important stage. And we know through a lot of research that's been done for infants that weren't held, how important it is for that touch and that connection to take place right after birth, early on in life. Now, that being said, we also want to make sure that we acknowledge and we recognize that this can also be a stressful time. And so as the grown-ups, we have to recognize that if our baby is crying a lot, we need to get checked out to figure out if there's something wrong. But there in the middle of the night, when you're tired and you're sleep deprived and your baby is crying and you can't figure out and you start to feel that frustration, you're human. Your baby's crying, your heart's breaking, you want to fix that. And we want to try to help you fix that. But in that moment, recognize sometimes you need to lay your baby down and walk away and take a breath. Because the last thing we want to do is allow that frustration to come out in a physical, harsh moment and a harsh movement to the baby. Damage can be done in that frustration that we don't want anyone to ever do.
Yeah.
And so recognize, know yourself. I'm getting frustrated. I need to lay my baby down. I need to walk away and take a breath for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then do a hard reset and then come back and figure out what's going on.
So the interaction with the caregivers, the parents with the newborn is ultimately best achieved through holding the baby, seeing their face and being familiar. As the newborns continue to get into the infant stage, is there other ways in which parents can continue to build upon those neurological tendencies to help increase the growth of their child?
Absolutely. So many. Probably way more than we have time for to talk about today. But engaging with their infant, engaging with their newborn, engaging with their infant, and then engaging with their toddler in ways that, and this is, these are the kind of things we talk about during wellness evaluations. There's so many wellness checks in the infant's first life and the first 2 years. And people think that those wellness checks are about the vaccines. The vaccines are a very important part of protecting the child, but the vaccines are just done during the wellness checks that we're already doing. We're doing wellness checks to ensure that the child is developing and growing appropriately and to give counsel and advice about how to engage at these different milestones, these different times in infants' lives. When kids are hitting their milestones, probably the easiest and best way as a parent to think about it is think about what milestones my kid's trying to do and what are they about to accomplish and engaging with them in that thing that they're learning. So like a nearly 1-year-old that's trying to learn to walk, you're holding their hand and helping them learn to walk. When they're trying to transfer from a coffee table to a couch, you're right there with them. So when they fall, you help them stand back up. So they learn, I can stand back up and try this again. And that further connects the parent to the child and the child to the parent. As they're growing, they know that that parent is there or that caregiver is there to pick them up when they fall. Doesn't mean they're not going to fall. We want to let them fall. They need to learn to fall so they can get back up and be strong and learn their skills. But they know that when they fall, there's somebody there.
Yeah. And so if a new parent or parents that are listening to this that are expecting their first child, any tips for them that you would recommend from your experience, or even also maybe misconceptions that you used to talk to parents this way in, but now it's just kind of the direction that things are going now?
I think, it's going to be a great time of your life, and be prepared to be tired. Be prepared to have your fuse a little shorter than it used to be. Sleep deprivation, it brings out different emotions than we're used to. We don't have the walls and the defenses when we're sleep deprived. Understand that there is going to be sleep deprivation when you have a newborn, but also understand that this is a precious time. This is a wonderful time. It doesn't mean it's not hard. Some of the hardest things we do in life are the most precious things to do. And so having the expectation that it may not be easy, but that doesn't make it not worthwhile, and to accept help. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. A lot of parents feel like that they have to do it all by themselves. And some parents, they do, because there's not that immediate help of a grandparent or a family or a friend that can be there for them. And those parents, they figure it out and they're strong and they get through it. But if you have people asking to help you, accept their help. Say thank you. During the first couple of months, we want to minimize the exposure to illness because we don't want those little babies getting sick. That's a really important part when babies are newborns. Those first couple of months, if they have a fever, we have to check them out in the emergency room to make sure it's not a life-threatening infection. That's a scary thing to go through taking your newborn into the emergency department, all that entails. It's overwhelming and it's scary. I want no one to go through that if they don't have to. So maybe don't let the person come around who's been sick in the last day or two. Maybe they don't come and provide the help. But when people are asking to help, if they're well, let them come into the house. Let them bring you food. Let them do things. Let them help hold the baby so you can get some sleep or take a shower or drink some water.
Yeah.
There's just the basic necessities of life. We kind of have to boil down to that when we have that newborn phase. But once we get things real simple like that, it's wonderful. It's glorious. You get to snuggle with the baby. It's wonderful.
So if people that are listening to this, there might be some things that Cullman Regional is going to begin to offer for newborns. Talk a little bit about what these parents could expect.
Yeah, it's great. The hospital here is just, over the last year, has been intentionally investing in the growth of new families in this community. They have built out and created a level 2 neonatal intensive care unit so that those babies that are born a little earlier than they're supposed to be and they need a little bit more support, they can stay right here in our community. We're dedicated to creating a pediatric home within the hospital system, both for inpatient and outpatient pediatric specific care. And with all of that, there was some remodeling that took place in the maternity unit just to make the lobby and the entrance that much more inviting and that much more approachable. And we're looking for, starting in the next couple of months, some prenatal classes to help people see what we have to offer in the hospital. And also, we're going to start teaching parents about infant and child CPR. So one of the things that a lot of parents get really anxious about is the idea of their child choking, that they can feel empowered of what to do in those stressful moments. That alone can alleviate a lot of the stress that some young parents feel.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll be sure to have everything in the episode notes. So if anyone wants to find out more information about any of these classes, information more about Cullman Regional, they can visit that. But I appreciate you being here today. I feel like I learned a lot. I have this reference to give to people that I know that are going through this at this very moment. And I think there's a lot of people that are listening and watching that are going through this or about to go through this. So I hope we were able to give a full grasp. There's so much we could talk about, and we'll probably have you back on the podcast at some point to talk even more in depth on certain topics. But I appreciate you being here.
I'm thankful for the opportunity to come and talk about one of the, I would say, is one of the best parts of my job, which is being there with new families as they're starting out with their babies. It is so much fun just to watch that season unfold, and I'm honored to be a part of it for some people.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for being here.
My pleasure.